Hey there, car enthusiasts. My name is Alex, and you are on the Classic Cars Roast channel. Its reputation precedes it, but does the actual car live up to the legend? Spoiler alert, not even close. We're dissecting the 1986 Pontiac Parisienne, a car that embodies the malaise era like a bad hangover. Now, let's talk about the market situation surrounding this so-called classic. The big iron market is really heating up, and you might think a full-size Pontiac sedan would be a hot commodity. You'd be wrong. Auction prices for this car have crept up to the range of $8,000 to $15,000, which, honestly, is a steep price for something that feels more like a relic of a bygone era than a desirable classic. The fact that these cars are part of the last rear-wheel drive full-size Pontiac sedan lineup does give them a bit of a nostalgic edge, but let's not kid ourselves. This isn't exactly the crown jewel of American muscle. What's really eye-opening is the absurdity of the low mileage on some of these cars, with well-preserved examples boasting numbers like 3,900 miles. People are paying a premium for these low-miles cars like they're some kind of holy grail. But in reality, you're just looking at a heap of plastic and cheap metal that was only ever meant to be driven to the grocery store and back. And that's if you're lucky enough to find one in good condition, considering the common rust spots around the rear wheel wells, trunk floor, and those lower door panels that seem to rot away as if they were made from Swiss cheese. First impressions of the Parisienne? It's like stepping into a time capsule, but not in the way you'd want. The dashboard is a sea of traditional needle gauges with wood grain trim, which might give off a hint of luxury, but it's all smoke and mirrors. The seats? Bench style, because who needs comfort when you can pack in more people for a Sunday drive? And don't get me started on that 4-speed automatic transmission. Sure, it's no Turbo Hydromatic 400, the best automatic transmission ever built, but it gets the job done. Eventually. In a nutshell, this car is a reminder of the decline in American automotive engineering, with a compression ratio sitting at a pathetic 7.6 to 1 and horsepower barely scraping 150. They might as well have slapped a "Please don't take me on the highway" sticker on it. So, what do you think? Is this a classic worth your time, or just another sad chapter in the story of American cars? All right, folks, let's dive into the creation story of the 1986 Pontiac Parisienne. And trust me, this tale is as tangled as some of the wiring in these aging beasts. Picture this, the early 1980s, a time when American automotive engineering had taken a nosedive into mediocrity. This was the dreaded malaise era, where the glory days of the muscle car were nothing but a distant memory. 1970 was the last great year for high-compression V8 engines, and by the time the Parisienne hit the streets, we were stuck with a sad 7.6 to 1 compression ratio. What a joke. Now, the Parisienne was born out of the need to keep up with an increasingly competitive market. But instead of innovation, we got a half-hearted attempt at luxury wrapped in a poorly executed package. It was produced from 1983 to 1986, riding on the second-generation B-body platform that was essentially a rehash of what had come before. It was like Pontiac took the cheap route and decided to slap on some chrome bumpers with rubber strips, hoping no one would notice how bland the design really was. Spoiler alert, we noticed. Under the hood, you had two engine options that were an embarrassment to the Pontiac name. The best you could muster was a 305 cubic inch V8, producing a pathetic 150 horsepower. If you opted for the 307 cubic inch variant, you'd be chugging along with a dismal 140 horsepower. Think about that. The performance numbers would make your grandmother's old station wagon seem like a race car. 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 12 seconds. That's the kind of performance that makes you want to cry. And let's not forget the transmission. Pontiac decided to go with the 4-speed automatic, the TH700R4, which is like choosing a lukewarm cup of coffee when you could have had the Turbo Hydromatic 400, the best automatic transmission ever built. What were they thinking? As for the interior, it was a classic case of let's throw in a bunch of cheap materials and call it luxury. You had your traditional needle gauges with faux wood grain trim, and if you were lucky, maybe you'd get some power-adjustable bench seats. But let's be real. The only thing these seats were good for was to remind you how much better the cars of the mid-60s used to handle, and how far we've fallen since then. And so the Pontiac Parisienne rolled into existence, a symbol of the malaise that had gripped the American automotive industry. It's a heavy reminder of what happens when manufacturers stop caring and start cutting corners. It's a car that tells a story of lost glory, and for that alone, it deserves some attention, though not necessarily your hard-earned cash. All right, folks, it's time to confront the elephant in the room, the exterior of the 1986 Pontiac Parisienne. Now, what do we have here? This is a full-size sedan that's trying its very best to look stylish, but honestly, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. The squared-off lines are about as exciting as watching paint dry. I mean, it's a classic case of when they were building it, they must have run out of ideas. If you're looking for sleek curves and dynamic designs, then turn around and walk away because this is not that car. Let's talk about the factory color options, shall we? You've got silver sand metallic, light briar brown metallic, dark blue metallic, light sage metallic, and midnight blue metallic. Wow, what a palette. It's like they took a look at the color wheel and decided to pick the most muted, uninspired tones imaginable. If you're looking for a car that screams, "Look at me," you might as well just buy a beige wall. It's a shame because these colors could have been vibrant, but Pontiac really dropped the ball here. Moving on to the grille, which features those vertical slats that seem to mock you with their minimal changes year after year. There's nothing remotely exciting about it. And those standard chrome bumpers with rubber strips? They look like they were an afterthought, slapped on to meet some sort of regulatory requirement rather than a design choice. It's like the designers were going for functional but ended up with forgettable. Now, let's not ignore the body quirks. The full-size nature of this sedan is certainly there, but it feels bloated and uninspired, like a sad balloon that's lost its air. And can we talk about that vinyl roof option? Now, that's a nod to the past, but it's also a signal that this car is trying way too hard to evoke nostalgia. It's like wearing a throwback jersey of a team that hasn't won a championship in decades. In terms of fit and finish, well, let's just say it's not winning any awards. Look closely, and you'll see comically thick door seals desperately trying to hide poor panel gaps. It's like they were embarrassed by their own shortcomings. And don't even get me started on the common rust spots. Rear wheel wells, trunk floors, and lower door panels are just waiting to ruin your day. So, after all that, I have to ask, is this exterior worthy of your attention? For me, it's a hard pass. Would I ever buy this car? Absolutely not. It's just not worth it. But hey, if you're a fan of mediocrity and appreciate a car that has all the excitement of a day-old sandwich, then maybe this is the ride for you. All right, folks, strap in because we're diving headfirst into the interior of the 1986 Pontiac Parisienne, where the charm of the malaise era meets mediocrity. Let's talk about the dashboard first. You know that traditional needle gauge layout? It's as if they took a time machine from the early 70s and slapped it in a car from the mid-80s. Sure, it has wood grain trim, but it's more like a cheap imitation rather than the real deal. It's definitely not a luxurious vibe. It's a sad reminder of what used to be. And don't get me started on the AM/FM radio, standard equipment, sure, but this isn't some high-tech sound system. It's like the factory just couldn't be bothered to offer anything more exciting. Now, let's address the smell. You hop inside, and what hits you? That delightful scent of aging vinyl and musty cloth. The seats? Oh boy, they're bench style. Perfect for a lazy Sunday drive, but not so great for comfort on long trips. You can opt for cloth or pretend you're living large with leather upholstery, but let's face it, nothing screams, "I'm a car from the malaise era," quite like those flat, uninspired seats. Power adjustable options? You bet. But good luck finding one that actually works without sounding like a dying robot. And here's the kicker, the steering wheel. You get a standard vinyl wheel, which is about as thrilling as a lukewarm cup of coffee. You can get an optional tilt wheel, but that's just a band-aid on the gaping wound of what should be a more engaging driving experience. Column shifter? Sure, if you like the feel of a cheap plastic lever rather than a solid gear selector. The Brougham trim is supposed to offer enhanced luxury materials. But really, what are we talking about here? It's like dressing up a potato in a tuxedo. It's still just a potato. And let's not forget the deluxe lighting package, which is more of a "hey, we're trying" gesture than actual luxury. Overall, the interior of the Pontiac Parisienne is a mixed bag of nostalgic charm and glaring flaws. It embodies the Malaise era's struggle between comfort and cost-cutting measures. For me, this interior is a deal-breaker. If I'm going to drive something, I'd rather not feel like I'm in a time capsule that forgot to upgrade. Would you really spend your time in this bland box of mediocrity? All right, folks, let's dive into the engine of the 1986 Pontiac Parisienne, because this is where the story takes a nosedive into mediocrity. The engine options are a stark reminder of the Malaise era, with a choice between two underwhelming V8s. First up, we have the 305 cubic inch displacement engine coded LG4. Now don't let the cubic inches fool you. This thing only churns out a pathetic 150 horsepower. Yes, you heard that right. 150 horsepower from a V8. That's just disgraceful when you consider that the last great year for high-compression V8s was 1970. Back then, engines had real power, not this sad excuse for motivation. The torque rating, 240 pound-feet. It's decent, but it's not enough to redeem the lack of excitement or performance. Then there's the 307 cubic inch displacement option, coded LV2. This engine is even worse, delivering a dismal 140 horsepower and a torque figure of 255 pound-feet. I can't help but wonder what Pontiac was thinking. This isn't engineering, it's a sad attempt to keep pace with the times when everyone else was cutting back on power and performance. Now, let's talk about the transmission. The Parisienne is saddled with a 4-speed automatic transmission, the TH700R4. While it's not the worst transmission out there, it's no turbo hydromatic 400, the best automatic transmission ever built, so it's already starting on the wrong foot. The TH700R4 has its moments, but it's plagued with issues, particularly in terms of longevity. If you're considering one of these, better be prepared to deal with a transmission that can wear out faster than a cheap pair of sneakers. The performance figures are laughable at best. 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 12 seconds? That's more like a leisurely stroll than a burst of acceleration. And don't even get me started on the quarter-mile time, clocking in at around 19.5 seconds. In a world where cars are meant to thrill and excite, the engine options of the Pontiac Parisienne are a cruel joke. For me, a car is supposed to deliver a visceral experience, not a soft, cushy ride that puts you to sleep. Would I buy this car? Absolutely not, unless I wanted to experience firsthand the lack of power that defined this era. This engine is a textbook example of what happens when manufacturers lose their way: pathetic power and uninspired performance. If you're looking for thrills, keep searching. This isn't it. All right, folks, let's dive into the guts of this thing, the transmission and rear axle, where the real magic, or should I say, the real mediocrity, happens. Now, when it comes to automatic transmissions, there's one name that stands head and shoulders above the rest: the Turbo Hydromatic 400, or THM 400. It's the best automatic transmission ever built, period. Smooth, reliable, and frankly, a joy to use. But guess what? This Pontiac Parisienne doesn't even come close to that level of engineering excellence. Instead, what do we find? A 4-speed automatic known as the TH700R4. And while it's not a total disaster, it's certainly no THM 400. This unit is prone to wear and tear, especially if it hasn't been properly maintained. Picture this. You're cruising down the highway, and you suddenly feel a shudder. That's the TH700R4 reminding you that it's not quite up to snuff. Now let's talk about the rear axle. The Parisienne comes with two rear axle ratios, 2.73 to 1 and 3.08 to 1. Sure, these numbers might sound okay, but in the grand scheme of things, they're just another notch in the belt of mediocrity. With a 0 to 60 miles per hour time of approximately 12 seconds, you're not winning any races here, folks. This isn't just a sluggish car, it's a heavy beast that feels more like a tugboat than a sports sedan. If you think you're going to whip around corners or feel the power of the road, think again. You know what's particularly sad? The handling. Cars from the mid-60s to early 70s handled much, much better than this bloated thing. The Parisienne feels like it's lumbering through life, making you long for the days when cars had character and responsiveness. And don't even get me started on the build quality. The mechanics of this car are just a reflection of the Malaise era. poorly designed and executed. It's like Pontiac threw in the towel and said, let's just slap a mediocre transmission and rear axle in there and call it a day. And what's the takeaway here? If you're a purist who appreciates real engineering, then the Parisienne's transmission and rear axle will leave you feeling hollow. It's a sad reminder of how far we've fallen since 1970, when high-compression V8s ruled the streets. So, if you're hunting for something to restore or enjoy, this is probably not the way to go. You want power? You want responsiveness? Keep looking, because this car just doesn't deliver. All right, folks, strap in because we're diving deep into the suspension, brakes, and overall handling of the 1986 Pontiac Parisienne, a car that, let's be honest, could use a serious makeover in the handling department. First, let's talk about the suspension. The Parisienne is built on the B-body platform, which was designed to offer a smooth ride. But let's face it, this is not the kind of car you want to take on twisty roads. The front features an independent suspension with coil springs, which sounds pretty decent on paper, but in reality, it struggles to deliver anything resembling the handling prowess of its predecessors from the mid-60s. You know, back when cars actually handled like they were meant to be driven instead of lumbered along like a tired old elephant. Now the rear end is where it gets even worse. Live axle with leaf springs. Yes, you heard that right. Leaf springs. This setup is about as exciting as watching paint dry. Sure, it might be rugged for hauling and straight-line cruising, but put a curve in the road and you're in for a ride that feels more like a boat than a car. The body roll is atrocious, and let's not even get started on the fact that this car weighs nearly 2 tons. It's like driving a floating piece of heavy iron that's completely out of its element when it comes to anything resembling spirited driving. Moving on to the brakes, which, if we're being honest, might as well be made of marshmallows. The Parisienne features 4-wheel disc brakes, which is a step in the right direction, but don't let that fool you. The stopping power is adequate at best, and the brake feel is about as reassuring as a wet noodle. You'll find yourself feeling like you're pressing down on a sponge rather than a brake pedal. And if you're thinking of doing any emergency stops, good luck with that. The weight of this beast combined with mediocre brakes means you'll need a long runway to come to a complete stop, which is pretty dreadful when you think about it. So what's the verdict on handling? It's a classic case of, it used to be better. In the golden days of the 60s and early 70s, you had cars that could take a corner without making you question your life choices. The Parisienne, on the other hand, is a product of the malaise era, where the focus was more on comfort than performance. If you're looking for a car to carve up the back roads, keep searching. This car is built for cruising down the highway at a leisurely pace, and that's about it. For me, that's a disqualifying element. Would I buy this car? Not a chance unless it's for a showpiece where handling is completely irrelevant. Now, when we talk about reliability, the sad truth is that the 1986 Pontiac Parisienne is not exactly a poster child for dependable classic cars. Sure, it has that nostalgic charm, but beneath its faux luxury veneer lies a minefield of issues. Common rust spots are your first red flag. Check those rear wheel wells, the trunk floor, and the lower door panels. If you find any bubbling or rot, walk away, because that's a slippery slope to a wallet-draining restoration project. And let's not even get started on the electrical system. The aging wiring can lead to all sorts of headaches with dashboard lighting and power windows, making you question whether you're driving a car or a haunted house on wheels. Mechanical weak points? Oh, they've got those covered too. The 4-speed automatic transmission, while it's a decent unit, is prone to wear. If you're not pouring money into maintenance, you might as well be driving a ticking time bomb. Cooling systems require regular attention, and if you let that slide, you can bet your bottom dollar you'll be left stranded on the side of the road. So what's the final verdict? The Pontiac Parisienne is a curious blend of nostalgia and mediocrity. It's not an outright disaster, but it's not exactly a winner either. If you're looking for a classic car that's going to impress your friends with its performance or reliability, this isn't it. But here's the kicker. Despite all its flaws, if you find one in good condition for a good price, go for it. This car has a brutal charm that's hard to deny. It's a piece of history, a reminder of a time when cars were built with character, even if that character is a bit flawed. So, is it too yellow? Would you spend your money on this? Ultimately, it's about what you want from a classic car. If you're in it for the nostalgia and the experience, the 1986 Pontiac Parisienne might just steal your heart if you can overlook its many shortcomings. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give it a like. Leave your comments and impressions. Your opinion is very important to me. Until next time.